we were just walking on. We were following our pre-designed maps. They gave us maps to with coordinates on it, so we would follow those. And every time we reached a checkpoint, we would call in on the radio and says, "Okay, this is first platoon, and we have reached checkpoint Charlie or whatever it was that was on our map." So, and I was walking point, and we had walked past this. I call it elephant grass because it's tall, and they there was like three VC inside those that grass, but they didn't hit the point. They waited for us to pass by and hit the rear end. So we had a couple guys that had to be medevac out. Well, we did between us. We knew that the enemy had to be between us and the river. So so we surrounded that grass, and we figured they would either have to go to the river or we were going to find them and kill them while they were in that grass, unless they surrendered. So we actually got them down, and I was again I was down by the river, and I got to thinking. I said, well, if they're in the river and they start wanting to get away, one of them or two of them may come down this river. So I was set up there, and I had a good clean shot at anybody coming that way. Well, sure enough, here come one. He was in the river, along the edge of the river. So I put a bullet in him, and then the other two went back the other way, and we had a young Marine in my squad. He had gone down into the river, or the bank, you might say, and had a 45. And he was on see if he could get a clean shot. Well, he was killed. Well, eventually, we killed the other two and got them out of the river, and then of course we had to take the dead Marine and send him out. That's one of the things I didn't like doing either, and I was asked to do once, and I never volunteered again, was to go and identify a body. I had just been made squad leader, and while we were out on Oklahoma Hills, and one night we were all sitting around, and we were still in Oklahoma Hills, and all of a sudden the sky just lit up with tracer rounds, and we could tell it was from across this river. And so our Colonel Dowd, he had called my captain and said, look, they've challenged us. And that's the way he put it. We've been challenged. So my company was supposed to move down maybe 200 or 300 yards, and we was looking for a place to cross that river that wasn't so deep. I mean, I hate to say it, but we were totally unprepared to cross that river. It just happened. There was a piece of it. We had a couple guys swim across the river. You got the other side. You could wade out probably a third of the way, but in the middle of it, it was so swift and deep. So they had to throw a rope from one side to the other, and we would hang on that rope and pull ourselves over that swift, deep area until we got to the other side. Well, you talking about a company size 190 to 200 guys. So here we are, soaking wet when we get to the other side. So we're having to climb up this bank that's about 20 feet tall. Well, it got so slippery from wet Marines trying to climb up it, that they had to throw a rope down it so that we could hold on to the rope and pull ourselves up. Well, as we got to the other side, and we were kind of all congregating over there, and there wasn't really much cover to get behind. And probably about 100 yards from us was a tree line, what we called a tree line. And it was totally flat between us and there. Well, my lieutenant ordered me to take my squad and move out because we were congregating, and that wasn't a good thing. Well, and the rest of the company hadn't even gotten all the way across that river yet. So we were told to go ahead and move out, my squad, and move out and cross and try to go into this tree line or make that tree line. It's about, I'd say, 100 yards away. So we were kind of not in single file, but spread out, walking in line, moving on this tree line. And we got about halfway across when all hell broke loose. There were two companies of North Vietnamese regulars embedded in those tree lines. We knew they were somewhere, but we didn't know they were there. So they let us get about halfway open. There was no cover. The only thing we could do was fall on our faces on the ground. Some of my guys made it to a bomb crater from probably one of our jets had dropped a bomb, and it blew a hole in the ground, so they were able to get to that hole in the ground. Me, my radio man, and my 2-point guys were all caught out in the open on open ground. There was nowhere for us to go. Immediately, my radio man was shot and killed because anybody that carries, I carried that radio myself for 2 months. So I know anybody that carries that radio is a target. Right. Another young man, now this radio man was a young black man, had a friend that him and his friend come over together, and he was a young white man. And that young man, seen that his friend had been shot and killed, we thought he was wounded, so he ran out to help him, and he was also shot and killed. Mm-hmm. Both of them had come over together, and both of them had only been in country about 2 weeks. I about the time that the radio man had gotten shot, my right leg flew up off the ground. It probably for a few nanoseconds, I thought something had just landed near me because they were shooting mortar rounds at us as well as machine gun fire and rifle fire. And then I realized I felt this throbbing in my leg, and I felt my boot filling up with blood. And I wasted all I was shooting, but you didn't really have a target. I was shooting at trees. I couldn't see the enemy because they were embedded in the tree line. But I opened fire and kept shooting, and I saved my last magazine and wasn't going to shoot it. I was in a position I was in, I couldn't load my mags. Any movement I made or any of my other guys made would cause a hail of gunfire where they were climbing up in the trees, shooting down on us or whatever they were doing. Well, eventually we called in Phantom jets, and they wound up shooting and killing with bombs and everything Uh, I don't know what I remember what it was, 60 or 70 NVA soldiers.
Wow.
So then, and that was about 2 hours it took. And then finally, Delta Company, which was part of our regiment, swept through on the flank and came over and helped us get ourselves up. And they were bringing in the helicopters to transport us to hospitals. One of my point men was shot through the shoulder. We had a young guy out there, and he was the only one left out in the open. And I know they probably tried to shoot him to pieces, but he didn't get a scratch on him.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody else was either dead or wounded.
How many were there total?
Total, we lost that day 9 dead and 60 wounded.
60. 9 dead, 60 wounded. Wow. And you were one of those 60.
I was one of the 60. The most terrorist. I still get kind of broken up. When I got on that helicopter, it was a Chinook, one of the big ones. And they were bringing the dead on board with us. And they were just piling them on top of each other like cordwood. Mm-hmm. Guys I knew just a few minutes ago. That's one memory I probably won't ever forget.